afternoon everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be discussing linear equations in one variable. So as you already know, we've covered quadratic equations, two variable equations, or as you can say simultaneous equations, and now we're going to cover linear equations in one variable. Now you might be thinking that usually people go the opposite way. They go from linear to simultaneous to quadratic equations. Why have I really gone the other way around? Now guys, the main reason why I went the other way around was I thought that more people would want to learn about quadratic equations and then simultaneous equations. Basically, it's later on that I kind of realized that there's a demand for people wanting to know what linear equations in one variable is. So I thought, why not make a video? Okay. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to solve one variable equations. Now, before we get started, what I want to tell all of you is that linear equations in one variable is probably the most important concept in algebra. If you don't know linear equations in one variable, learning anything in math is going to be very difficult. So I'm going to teach this topic from the absolute basics. So the only thing I request from you is to listen carefully, and a receptive mind is required, like many great teachers say, nothing else. But anyways, let's get started. So now before we get started, there's one thing that I want to tell you guys, and that is, guys, that there is a linear law, ax plus b equals 0. Okay, this is basically called the linear law. Okay, so this is a law of linear equations in one variable. So here a and b are constants. Okay, that's what it is. So now, how do I find the value of x? If I am to find the value of x of this equation, how will I do it? Okay, so let me just tell you a few things. Now, there are certain rules in linear equations. Let me tell you. So now, guys, the most important rule is that you have to balance both sides. Okay, you have to balance both sides of the equation. Now, how is this done? Now, listen carefully. Now, what we have to do, guys, is we have to take b from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. We have to transpose b from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. So, how do we do that? So, basically, you take the same variable or the same constant to the other side. Okay, you substitute the same value or the same constant to the other side. Okay, I mean the same variable or the constant to the other side. But the only thing that changes is the sign. So that means the sign inverses. Okay, so if you don't understand what I mean, like if you don't understand English, well then you can say mathematics, please, and let me just tell you. Okay, so here you have plus b. So now you're transposing it to the other side. So when we transpose b to the other side, because b is positive on the left hand side, we need to take the inverse of the sign on the left hand side. So the inverse of plus is minus. Okay? Okay, and then you get 0, okay, and then you get minus b, and then you have ax equals minus b, okay, and then now what do you do? And then now what? So basically now you divide both sides by a, okay, so you get negative b upon a, so the answer is x equals negative b upon a. Okay, so this is the basic rule of linear equations. This is how you solve it. Now one more thing that I want to tell you guys is that some people usually say that the sign reverses. Some people usually say that the sign inverses. Basically, guys, what this means is whatever sign you have on the left hand side, you take the opposite sign on the right hand side. But whichever number or variable, exists, that stays the same. Only the sign changes. So here you can either have a variable like b, which is a variable, or you could have a number. Okay? So what I want you guys to do is, I hope you've understood this. Now I just want you guys to try these questions on your own. Just try these two questions on your own. It'll only take 2 seconds. And then I'll solve both of these with you. And then we'll move on to questions which are a little harder in one variable equations. Okay, now guys, this topic is the most important topic in mathematics. So if you don't understand this, you're not going to understand anything in mathematics. Guys, this is the absolute basics. Okay, these are the absolute basics in math. Right now, you probably just think it's a topic in algebra. But if you're someone who wants to study engineering, or go into finance, or go into anything which is mathematically intensive, if you don't know what this is, well then you're going to have trouble. So might as well learn it now to avoid trouble later. Okay, so let's solve these two. I'm sure you've got the answer to these two questions. So basically, let's do the first one. So what did I tell you guys? That you take the opposite sign to the left hand side. You take the opposite sign. You take the opposite sign. You take the opposite sign to the right hand side. Okay? And the number stays the same. So what does that mean? That means that x minus 3 plus 3. Okay, 5 plus 3. Okay, so x equals 8. Okay, so what did we do here, guys? We have minus here, so we have to take the opposite side. We have to take the opposite sign. So the opposite sign is plus. Okay, so then we add 3. We add the same number. We substitute the same number, on both sides. Only thing that changes is the sign. So you transpose the same number or variable, but the sign changes. So then x is equal to 8. Okay, so now let's do the next one. Okay. This one is pretty easy as well. So what do you do, guys? So this is what you do. So x equals 5. Okay? This was quite easy. So now before we move further, I want to give you more confidence. Now how can I give you more confidence? Now if you want to check whether these two answers are correct, what do you do? What do you do, guys, if you want to check whether these two answers are correct? So what you have to do, guys, is you take this value of x, okay, in both these cases, okay, and you put it back in the equation. So basically here, 8 minus 3 is equal to 5, okay, 5 plus 2 is equal to 7. So basically in these two cases, the solutions are correct, okay? So what about here, guys? What about here? Now, if I want to check whether this is the correct solution, how do I check it? Okay, just have a think about it. Okay. Now, guys, the main reason why I am trying to engage you more into these sort of things is, guys, math is very boring if you just keep on listening or you just keep on reading what is being given to you. Unless you try and do math yourself, you're going to find it boring and dull. So I'm just trying to make math a little interactive. It'll be more fun for you. Excuse me, guys. I'm just a little dehydrated, so. Okay, so this is how you verify it then, guys. So we know that x is equal to this much. So we put x, so you put this like this. Okay, so plus b, okay, equals to 0. Okay, so what do we do here, guys? So here you just cancel out the a's. Okay, so when you cancel out the a's, minus b plus b equals 0. Okay, now there's another way to do it. The other way, guys, is that you don't cancel out both the a's. You take the LCM. Okay, so a divided by a is 1, so you get negative ab. And then a divided by 1 is is a, so you get plus ab equals 0. So these are two ways. You can decide which way you want to use. Whichever way makes you happy, do it. The answer will be correct. Okay. So now I'm going to take a few more questions like this. Okay. And then we'll move on to questions which are a little harder in one variable. Now guys, the reason why I'm taking such easy questions or questions which you think are absolute no-brainers is because only when you're able to master such questions will you have the confidence to do harder ones. Okay, so now now the questions that I'm going to give you are going to be a little harder because now because usually you get many linear equations where if you don't have the knowledge of integers, you are practically gone. So I'm going to give you some harder ones, okay? So x minus 3 minus 8, okay? X plus 5 over negative 9, okay? X minus 3 over 1, okay? X plus 4 I don't know, over negative 2. Okay. So why don't you try solving all of these and then we'll move on to even harder ones. Okay? So let me just solve them for you. Okay, so try and solve them yourself. Okay? So I've already shown you the process of how they're done. Now you have to try them yourself. So basically guys, remember that you take the opposite sign, but the variable or the number stays the same on both sides. Okay, so then x equals negative 5. So guys, if you're someone who's really not good at integers because you get confused, just remember one thing guys, that whenever you get confused between negative and positive, you always take the sign which is ahead of the bigger number. Okay? So minus 8 plus 3 is negative 5 because you have more negatives and you have less positives. Okay, remember that. And just remember this. Let me just put it here to make it easier. Minus, minus. Okay, these are the integer signs. You can take them down. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the next ones. Okay, so the next one is also quite easy. So you have x plus 5. So remember, you take the opposite sign, okay, and you transpose the same number or variable. So negative 9 minus 5. So x equals how much? X equals how much? X equals how much, guys? Okay guys, and x equals negative 14. Okay, x equals negative 14 for this one. So let's do these two down here. I don't want you getting confused now. Okay. So here you have minus 3. Okay, so again you have plus 3, which equals 1 plus 3. Okay, where x is equal to 4. Okay, and then you have x plus 4, x minus 4, negative 2, negative 4 equals negative 6. Okay, negative 6. Let's just put it there. Okay. Okay? So now what I want you guys to do is, now that you've done all of these, now if you solved all of these, then after you've taken all of this down, I want you to try these questions. Okay, so these are questions which I've just made up, I've manufactured them. So if you do get decimal sort of answers or strange answers which are not whole numbers, then try and understand I made up these questions. I haven't taken them from any book. Okay? This is a topic where you don't really have to take. Okay, so guys, this is 7, this is a bracket here. 5, 3. I don't know. Guys, I'm randomly just making these up. I'm manufacturing these questions, okay? So if you don't get a whole number, I apologize. But try these 3. Now before you try these 3, remember the distributive law, okay? So this is your distributive law. A times B plus A times C, which will give you this. Okay, so just remember that. Okay, and then you can solve these. Okay, so one more thing that I want to tell you while you solve these guys is I remember when I learned integers, I got absolutely confused. I'll tell you the whole story and then. Okay, guys, so the funny thing is that I had a tuition teacher in India who taught me integers. Okay, he first taught me bod mass and order of operations, and then he taught me and then he taught me these signs. Okay, and I remember he used to tell my mom. That your son is so good in math. He's so smart in math. He can go on to do wonders in mathematics. And he was like, I don't know why his teachers in school underestimate. That time I was, in India. So I first learned integers in India, okay? And then my father got transferred to Switzerland, okay? So I basically studied in the International School of Geneva. I studied in LGB at first. So if you've gone to International School of